My great-great-grandmother, Hala Gorani, was likely not able to see much of the Bosphorus from inside the harem of Sultan Abdulaziz's Dolmabahce Palace. She was 5, perhaps 6 years old when she was kidnapped by a man in the hills outside her village somewhere in Abkhazia, an Ottoman protectorate on the Black Sea, and forcibly brought to Istanbul sometime in the mid-19th century. The Russians and Turks had been fighting for influence over Abkhazia, a small principality within the Kingdom of Georgia, for so long that it's impossible to know where exactly Hernegar's family were from, where they had settled in the region, or whether they were ethnic Abkhaz or Georgian. In her old age, she would tell the story of how her abductor, a one-eyed man, had one day snatched her and delivered her to her new living quarters in the Sultan's palace. She never saw her family again. Dolmabahce, completed in 1856, was the empire's new Western-style palace overlooking the Bosphorus Strait. Built over 13 years, marrying neoclassical and Baroque architectural styles and surrounded by gardens looking out on the water, Dolmabahce Palace featured almost 300 rooms dripping in gold leaf and crystal. The largest Bohemian crystal chandelier in the world, sold to the Sultan by Britain's Queen Victoria, still hangs in the main ceremonial hall. The older Topkapi Sarai was being left behind. Its traditional Turkish tiled walls and Ottoman architecture were considered passé. It had served as the seat of imperial power for 4 centuries, but was largely deserted by the time Hernegar was brought to Istanbul, with only the wives and concubines of Sultan Abdulaziz's predecessor, Abdülmecid, housed in the Topkapi's private wing. In Ottoman palaces, the harem was a separate private family area for the Sultan, his consorts and children, his immediate male relatives, and hundreds of other women who held various ranks in the palace's ruthlessly competitive hierarchy. The pecking order there was clear and could not be appealed. The woman at the top was the Sultan's mother, the Valide Sultan, who ruled over the others and even chose the leader's consorts. Just below this queen mother were the Sultan's wives and the consorts he maintained relationships with, and whose importance grew with every male heir they bore. The other women and girls were either married off to family members of the Sultan or to his ministers and pashas throughout the caliphate. Only a small number of girls in the harem were chosen to become the Sultan's concubines, most often by the ruler's own mother. Once selected, they became iqbals, or favorites, and were given privileges the others did not have, a private apartment and slaves of their own. Many more, however, would never even meet the leader. The private quarters within Ottoman palaces looked nothing like the 19th century Orientalist depictions of harem life, with half-naked bejeweled odalisks draped in expensive fabrics, lazily lounging on daybeds, being fanned by eunuchs. Rather, the harem was a ruthlessly hierarchical world where women competed for attention and favorable treatment. The women lived a life of contradictions. They were both slaves and members of the Ottoman elite, both servants and wives, both sisters and competitors. And like all women during that time and in almost every culture around the world, they had no control over their own destinies. The women of the harem were enslaved in a world that had thrown them together as a result of the desires and ambitions of men, then made to compete for the affection of men, and forced to rely on men for freedom from their palace prison.